we are live.
Okay, thank you, Annette. I will call this meeting to order. And we've got a number of resolutions here, Annette. Is there anything that stands out in those resolutions that I need to specifically point out? Otherwise, they look like they're all renewal.
So can I do a roll call real quick?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Roll call, please.
That's okay. And remember to say where you're at and that you're on Zoom. All right, Commissioner Curran.
I'm here, present, Zoom, Niles, Treasure Township.
Commissioner Hugel.
Here, Zoom, St. Joseph Township.
Commissioner Meeks.
Here, Zoom, Ben Charter Township.
And if you could stand by just 1 second, I think you're going to have Commissioner Majeric.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything on the resolutions that I specifically need to know?
Sorry, let me, I gotta call him.
There's Commissioner Majeric now.
He's connecting. So we're doing the roll call, Commissioner Majeric. So Commissioner Majeric.
Say you're here, Mike. Unmute.
I can see him. Can I do that? Oh, there we go.
Hey, I'm here. Michael Majeric here from Niles. Sorry I'm late.
All right, thank you very much. So on the resolutions, Commissioner Curran, what you have here is basically renewals of agreements that we've already had. So the first two are programs within the jail that's for the jail inmates, and that's a renewal of that. The only caveat to that is we did change it so that if they're not able to do the program because the jail's closed to the public, then of course we won't be paying for that service if they're not doing it. The next four there are, we accept the community corrections grant, which we do every year, and then those following agreements after that are just renewals of the same programs that we had been doing with that community corrections grant. And then the next five that you have there are all programs that the courts use on a regular basis. They're all different. Well, one's a position. For the most part, they're just programs that we use in various places throughout the family division of the court. And those are all renewals of those contracts. It's the same contract we've used in the past.
Okay, thank you, Annette. Appreciate that. Hey, Mike, just so you're aware, at the beginning of the meeting, when we were meeting in person, each one of you would occasionally report out on things. And if we've gone Zoom, we've kind of gotten away from that. So this morning I asked Don and he would be willing to report out one of these topics. And so Chris is going to report out on the public defender compliment training. Don's going to report out on the Silver Beach erosion. And that leaves the Friend of the Court Model Project. Would you be willing to report out on that, please? Mike? Yes?
He's not unmuted. Hang on.
Mike?
Commissioner Majeric, you need to.
Hey, not sure why this isn't Not sure why this isn't working, but yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Okay. Board appointments, Annette?
We're gonna come back to those after Brian and Paul do their list. And I'll have all of those ready for you. And like I said, I'm pretty sure they're just all reappointments that I'm gonna ask for you to recommend. So I'll turn that over to Brian then.
Okay, thank you, Annette. Then I'll turn it over to Brian. The first item we have is the complement change at the Defender's Office.
Yeah, so members of the committee, it's going to be a whole lot of court and court-associated services talk for the next few minutes. So we do have Paul Janche here. He's going to first talk with you all about a complement change. and then we'll move into a real estate discussion. Paul has provided background documents that you each have. If the chair would like, I can put those up on the screen so you can follow along.
That would be helpful, Brian. Thank you.
Okay. So I'll let Paul get started, and I'll slowly get everything displayed up onto the screen.
Thank you. Good morning,
Morning,
committee members. The first item that I wanted to discuss was a request for a complement change for our office supervisor position. This position was created when our office was about a third the size that it is now, approximately 8 individuals, and now we're at 24 full-time employees. We also have a very large independent contractor, what I call the panel attorneys. There's 18 of those individuals, either on an annual contract with us or on individual appointment contracts with us, so we have to manage those folks as well. I rely very heavily on the office supervisor position to assist me with all of that, in addition to training, obviously training staff, supervising staff, et cetera. Another component of it is the fact that MIDC, as they've kind of gotten their feet under them over the last 3 years, they have really ramped up the level of care and scrutiny that we are subject to. These include our annual grant application. It's not kind of the rubber stamp that it was when my predecessor was doing it. I was hoping to use the document that Mr. Rema had done as a template, and they really changed it and made it more, very significant, much more documentation. Is this, okay, it's working? Yep. So that's I rely on her heavily to help me gather materials for that, and I also rely on her, and I would anyone in that position, grant application and compliance experience, which she has a lot of. That's not something that is really, part of her current job description, but it's something that, I need assistance with that, and she's a great help. Our quarterly reporting is something has become much more significant as well. The state this year, MIDC, obviously, with the pandemic and funding issues, they have really ramped up the scrutiny on those documents as well. I guess to back up a little bit, one of our victories for the office this year was that our compliance plan and cost analysis was approved immediately within the first group. About half of the state was not approved. There are a couple of indigent defense systems, other counties that have offices like ours that still do not have funding for this year. Among those is Kalamazoo, just up the road. So, we worked very hard on it together and got it approved. We've had to comply with the existing standards. We were required to put into place some additional internal tracking. That would be initial interviews, experts, our approval denial of experts, appeals of those. And additionally, something that's on the horizon is the minimum indigency standard. So the MIDC is very close to passing a standard which really is related to judicial independence, which was already passed, Standard 5, which is going to have our office reviewing potential clients for court-appointed eligibility rather than the court, taking that out of the court's hands, which is going to be an additional responsibility. Things that we're very excited about and can't wait to do, but certainly, it requires a lot more work and care. This position, there is an office administrator position in the prosecutor's office, is my understanding. They do have a similar position, and this would kind of put us on fair footing with them. This position would be supported by grant funds. There's no question that MIDC would, they defer to us on job descriptions and so forth. I'm requesting an increase from grade 7 to grade 9, and as far as the step, I'll leave that to the appropriate officials, but Ms. Cristiano is currently at a step 7 on grade 7. It's not an incredible increase, but something that I think that she's earned. Most importantly is, for the long term, if I had to replace her, if she retired, or if left for whatever reason, because we have had some administrative staff that have left to work for Whirlpool, which I don't know if that's worked out great this year, but if I had to replace her, it'd be very hard to find somebody that would be capable of doing all the things that she does. So that's a top priority for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions from the committee members?
How many people do we have at office administrator at level 9? How many level 9s do we have in each department, I guess?
So that's not a question I can answer off the top of my head, but it's 8:15. If you all give me about 1 minute, I'm gonna run upstairs and see if Shelley's here. I'll pull her downstairs and we can get you that answer.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other questions from the committee?
Annette, I'll text her.
Okay.
Paul, I have a couple of questions. Well, maybe the first might be for Brian. According to the salary study that we had done, does this fit in line with that?
Again, I'm going to punt that one to Shelley. I've just asked her to come join us.
Okay.
I believe she's upstairs, so it should just take a minute to get her down here.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure it's still in alignment with everything else. And
Yep.
it appears to me that she is maxed out at grade 7.
Yes, sir.
She wouldn't get any more steps. She'd only get any pay increases, where moving her to grade 9, she's now at the bottom of the scale and can move up, correct? Is that the intent?
I don't know. Well, whatever the step that is appropriate, whoever decides that, I defer to them. I think if she went to a step 1 on grade 9, it might be about the same, like exactly the same. I don't have that in front of me. So I would hope for a little bump, but it'd be great if we could give her some room to grow into that position and earn the pay increases. I don't anticipate, I wouldn't ask that she go right to step 7 on that grade.
Right, and the information that you provided us shows us what her current salary is, which is at the top of grade 7, and grade 9, her salary now would be at the bottom of 9 to give her room to move up. So
yes, sir.
Yeah, top of grade 7 and the bottom of grade 9 are pretty close.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
While I'm working to get Shelley down to you all, if you would like, we can move into the real estate discussion. I'll have Paul start walking all through that, and then I'll physically go grab Shelley and have her ready to answer your questions.
That'd be fine. Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Thank you. So the next topic is my request for consideration to consolidate in one office the St. Joseph Public Defender team, which consists of 21 of our 24 full-time employees. Currently, we are divided into 2 offices approximately equally, with me, my office manager, and most of our misdemeanor division team at the original building, 100 Church Street. That building had served us well, I think, when we started, in 2017, when we were a staff of, 8 attorneys. Some significant limitations are we can't meet privately very effectively in that office. Our attorneys in that office are in cubicles upstairs. And most importantly, and I think one of the major benefits that I have in recruiting people to work for an office like ours is the ability to collaborate, mentor, and train, to be trained by senior attorneys. We have lost over the last 2 years 5 staff attorneys to other offices. I think we're in a very good place now. We are fully staffed for the first time, at least as far as I know, at 24. I don't think we've ever been fully staffed. But having our office under one roof, the St. Joe team would give us a great opportunity to have that collaboration and mentoring, to be able to meet privately, have our attorneys meet privately with their clients, which is not only an MIDC standard, but it's also, really, it's the cornerstone of criminal defense work. You need to be able to meet privately with your clients. I reached out to my regional manager about this plan, or this sort of, it was really a pipe dream at that point, several months ago, because I was noticing that, you know, we've been about a year, we've been split between the two offices. And I've noticed, you know, obviously some of this is due to COVID, but we've had a hit to morale. And I think there's been some, you know, personnel issues, and really, you know, our ability to collaborate between junior and senior attorneys has been very hampered, because we're, you know, about a mile away from each other, these two offices. So I was talking to my regional manager about it, and she's like, well, you know, maybe now's the time. See if you can talk to this landlord, which, you know, I'll get into that in a second. You might be able to have an advantage during this time, and see if you can get into the space with the whole group, and MIDC would support you. You know, this would be funded by the grant. So I reached out to the landlord. The space, the Edgewater space that we're asking for consideration of it's at the Renaissance Business Center, 511 Renaissance Drive. It's over there by Armstrong's law office across the bridge. And it's perfect. It's a perfect space. It's got ample room for us. There may be an office or two that are vacant where we could put our interns, but each attorney and investigator could have their own individual office. Right now we have half of that building that we occupy, and the other half it's not really walled off from us. There's sort of a common area and restrooms in between. And then the front half is what we're asking consideration to move our team into. At that location, there is a wonderful on-site file storage. It's an electronic file storage, so these large cabinets like move around with a button. You can shift around easily, and that would be very convenient and house most of the files that we would need reasonably on site. It's a secure location. Has you know, the key fob materials are already there, and I did talk to IS about it as well, and I think they can adapt or take some of the equipment from our building over there to make it work. Probably the most significant piece that caused this to be realistic is when I reached out to the landlord. I told him, I said, you know, I'm working with my existing budget for FY21, and I think this is the amount of money that I could find in this budget, and they agreed to it. They agreed sort of, you know, on basically that it would be a 1/3 rent obligation for 8 months until we can get to our next fiscal year and pay the appropriate rate. Which is a very significant concession. Without it, there's no way we could have afforded this. But I think now's the perfect time. We have the advantage, you know, and this is one of the silver linings of the pandemic, I guess, is the landlord is willing to work with us. So I, again, talked about I think we would have a boost in morale, mentoring, collaboration, without a doubt, having our senior attorneys. My plan is to sort of mix the senior and junior attorneys in with the investigators, you know, have their office locations really intermingled, which is not the case now. I think this will help me significantly with staff retention and recruiting. I mean, you know, when I interview staff, I can be pretty charming when I interview them, but you know, when they see our office at 100 Church, they're wondering where they're going to be, and they're in a cubicle, and it's, you know, it can be tough. That's not for everybody. And for them to see this office, people are going to say, you know, this is a legitimate law office. These are well-supported, well-trained attorneys. They have wonderful collaboration. I think it's really going to help me with staff retention and any recruiting, if that comes up. I hope it doesn't. I think our clients would be very impressed, not only with the ability to meet privately in their own attorney's office, but also just the professional nature of this building is far superior to 100 Church. On-site file storage I already talked about. Again, the most important component to make this possible was the huge concession from the landlord, and that you do have a draft lease that I think has been emailed to you. It shows that they're willing to give us about 1/3. We would be paying 1/3 of the rent for 8 months. And then the other expenses, I've looked around as best I can, talked to Building and Grounds, talked to IS, I talked to various folks that Todd Johnson referred me to. There's some equipment that needs special disassembly, reassembly, and I have done my best to give estimates. I very much think this is possible within our existing budget for this year. I think the actual hit to our budget is about $33,000. There's a $20,000 figure that you'll see there. That is what I see as an offset. So there is, I talked to Doug James about what would be the cost savings to our budget if we vacated 100 Church. He had me talk to Todd Johnson as well. It's a little over $20,000 that would be available if our office vacated that space. That's the cost that the grant pays to Berrien County for the privilege of occupying that space. So there's a little bit of an offset there. The other funds would come from basically a surplus within our budget. We've never been over budget for any of the years we've been in operation. We've been around $150,000, $200,000 under budget each year. And I think we very much could make this work. So I'm asking consideration that we be allowed to move forward with this plan. Potentially, so the landlord is willing to let us begin February 1st. They're even willing to let our IS department, building grounds, et cetera, move things in, do what we need to do a couple weeks early, which is very generous. So I'm asking consideration that this be allowed to move forward.
And
yes,
Paul, right now, you occupy half of the building at the Renaissance Business Center?
Yes, sir, the east half of that building.
Okay, and you're asking to take the whole building?
Well, it's not, I guess the building has multiple leased units. This would be us taking the whole unit at 511, it's Suite 120 at 511 Renaissance Drive.
Okay, and currently, how many attorneys do you have at the Renaissance Center and how many do you have at Church Street?
So at Church Street, we have, let me think, 6. I believe it's 6 attorneys, and my chief investigator and my office manager, along with our support staff at 100 Church. And then at the Renaissance Business Center, it is 9 attorneys, if I'm not mistaken, and then 2 investigators. My chief assistant is over there now, but there's really, she's kind of alone with, in terms of management staff over there.
Okay, so this would essentially put your entire department under one roof then? You'd consolidate everything?
Apart from the Niles sort of satellite office that is within the Niles courthouse, where we have 3 attorneys that have that as their full-time role staying down there. They have ample office space, private meeting space down there. But yes, this would put our entire St. Joe team under one roof.
Okay, questions from the committee?
The only question that I have, again, from moving that, what would the increase in overall increase rent be from Church Street to Renaissance once everything moved?
So right now, there really isn't a rent figure to the county. The state grant pays to Berrien County as part of what's called the cost allocation, about $220,000 a year. A little over $20,000 of that, I've worked to determine that is attributed to that building. When speaking to financial services and building and grounds, the monthly rent for the front space at Renaissance Business Center should be in the lease. It's approximately $6,500 a month plus about $1,000 in common area maintenance fees. So off the top of my head, I'm not great at quick math, but I mean it's a pretty substantial increase. I think it's about $90,000 a year, which will be paid from the grant. The MIDC will pay the grant, from the grant will pay the rent for the front portion. Overall, the rent for next year will probably be somewhere around $150,000 for the St. Joe team to be at that location. However, the following year, there are some amortized construction costs from when we first moved that will fall off, which should save us a couple thousand a month, I think, maybe $1,000 a month.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have one. We talked about this at first when they started making that move to put everybody in one place. There is going to be some cost savings with the planners and different things that they have. I do believe. But this was the first thing we talked about when they did that is consolidating in under one roof. Am I correct, Jim?
Yeah, yeah, you are.
Now, finally, it come down to that, which is probably a good thing.
Okay. The other question I guess I have, Paul, is if I recall correctly, when we approved this in the first place to go to Renaissance, the lease agreement, didn't we put language in there that said that we will rent or lease that building as long as the funding is available?
Yes, sir.
That if we lose our funding, we can get out of that building.
Absolutely, and that is within that provision as well as within the draft lease for the front half. There's really two provisions. It's like if the county dissolves the public defender office, 120 days notice, and we can, the obligation terminates. And the same thing if the state terminates funding, the county can remove themselves from the lease as well. And those are in that draft lease as well.
Okay. And has corporate counsel reviewed all this yet? The lease agreement?
No. So members of the committee, if you give a thumbs up, the next steps will be working with corporate counsel to review the agreements. From there, we would then walk this over to the Board of Commissioners. And I would anticipate at this point in the year, you're probably looking at January before you would see any formal action.
Okay. Then Brian, I guess this question is for you. What are you going to do with Berkstreet?
So for right now, we'd be essentially just winterizing it. I think there's a ton of value in having that piece of property. What to do with it, I don't have an initial plan, but we would want to maintain it. So Todd Johnson and his crew would be shutting it down for the winter, making sure that we don't have any issues with pipes bursting. We have a similar issue with the juvenile. We had people in doing the delinquency program. They moved out a few months ago, so Todd's taken steps to winterize that building. And hopefully a proposal will come forward in the next few months that we can figure out what to do with the building.
Okay. And I guess I would concur with that decision, unless the committee members have anything to say differently. I think we ought to keep that property. I really do. I'm sure we can find use for it, but I don't think I'd get rid of it at this point.
Mr. Chair, so this summer I went to visit Paul's building a couple of times, or the county's building where Paul is currently housed.
Much better.
And the thing I noticed, we were at the kind of the height of COVID concerns. We were also looking at just a whole lot of virtual meetings between Paul's clients and the courts. And we ended up setting up a tent outside so that people weren't just absolutely sweating their tails off, waiting to get into the county's building. That was the moment that I realized we had some space challenges. It's a fine building. It's just not really set up to handle a queue of people. And as people were starting to queue, there's a really small foyer, and Paul's team was doing their best to provide customer service, but it forced people to stand outside and wait in the parking lot, and it was not ideal. So when he brought this proposal forward, I wasn't surprised, and quite frankly, I'm supportive of it. I think it'll be better for his team. I think it'll be better for his clients.
Yeah, and Brian, I believe that all the committee members here on admin were present when we took the tour of Church Street. So I think all four of us have an idea of how that building you know, the cubicles on the second floor and, you know, we pretty well packed in there. So I think everybody can appreciate, you know, getting into a larger building, larger space. So I guess unless I hear anything different from the committee members, I would say let's move forward. Give Brian the okay to move forward. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, we have to make a motion. If it would, I would make that motion, but okay. I'm with
Second.
you.
Annette, would you like a motion, or is consensus in the minutes acceptable?
We just need consensus in the minutes because the resolution is gonna just come back to you guys to approve the agreement, and then it'll go to the full board. So I think at this point, as long as we have your concurrence, we'll get working on that then.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your support there, Don, but we'll wait for the resolution. And I think Kelly got to address Commissioner Majoric's question. Good morning,
Yeah.
Shelley.
Morning.
And I caught Shelley a little flat-footed, so if the committee would be willing to restate the questions related to the staffing complement.
Mike, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, my question was just how many office administration people do we have, or office administrators in departments, and how many are at the level 9 pay level? I'm at, my job is I'm a car salesman. And so I see finances every day, and I see office administrators, and most of them are, half of them are from Michigan, the other half are from Indiana. And of course it's around Niles, South Bend, Mishawaka. Most of the office administrators I see are around 30,000. They can jump to maybe high 30s, but I don't see any of them around 50 to 60,000. Maybe it's because I just never got them, but it just seems a big jump. Even it's 20,000, I think, for going to 2 levels. I just, and I don't mind paying it if that's what office administrators make in Bering County. I just want to know and get the facts straight.
Okay, there's one other classification called office administrator that is in the prosecutor's office. That is the only other classification of that title in the county. What we've kind of told other departments who have asked for increases in staff salaries and things like that is just let's kind of hold off till we know the status of the salary study. So that we can not piecemeal things and make sure that what we do is in accordance with the salary study. And I'm sorry, I had a medical appointment this morning, so I didn't have a chance to prepare anything. Brian, like you said, kind of caught me. But I don't know what the salary study said about Paul's office position. So I'd like a chance to go back and look at that.
Shelley, do you know right offhand what grade and step the prosecutor's office manager is at?
I know it is a grade 9. I do not know what step she's at.
Okay.
How long has she been there?
She's a long-term employee, probably. She was promoted up through the ranks, started as a legal secretary, probably at least 15, if not 20 years.
So essentially what Paul is asking for, his grade 9 would be very similar to the prosecutor's grade, except prosecutor's office might be at a higher step, but would be at the same grade, correct?
I believe that's what he's asking for, yes.
Okay, is that consistent with your thinking, Shelley?
I really haven't had a chance to review the proposal. Like I said, I'd like to go back and look at, the salary study. I'd like to look at the job description, see where there's differences or anything like that. So
Okay.
I don't believe like the due diligence has been done on this one yet.
Yeah, because I asked the question on the salary study, obviously, once we had that study done, that anytime there was a complement change, I think it ought to be referred to make sure that we're staying, pretty much in alignment with what we have in mind or have planned. So Brian, could I ask you to send this back and you and Shelley and Paul do your homework and then bring it back to us?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, assuming this gets out of the starting blocks with the admin committee, we'll then have to walk it across the street to the PHS committee. So this is one that isn't going to move at the speed of light, but we can definitely get ready. And my intent would be to come back and talk with admin committee probably in mid-January, the next time that this group will meet.
Okay, that's fine. But
Okay.
at our level, at the beginning stages, I would rather vet it as best we can before it goes on to PHSC.
Yep.
And I think that includes, obviously a recommendation from you and Shelley. So I would appreciate that. Any other questions from the committee members on this topic? Okay. Brian, I assume that getting our blessing to go into another building, that then you will start that process?
Yeah, so later today, I'll email Judge Dwayne and have him start communicating with Paul on the lease agreement. I think that the lease is, I would say more than likely about 9/10 of the way ready. We'll have corporate counsel review it, give it the thumbs up, and then we can move it on to the board for final consideration.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Brian. And thanks, Paul.
Thank you all very much.
I heard your comments, and I think you're right. When you started talking about morale and making, because a work environment is important, and you want to try to give your employees the best work environment you can. And having all of us seen Church Street, we could appreciate getting out of Church Street and getting into a nice office building. So that's great. We're happy to give our blessings and move that one forward.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks for being here this morning. Anything else, Brian, with the Public Defender's Office?
No, I do have one, I think, quick item before we move to friend of the court that I was hoping to bring to the group's attention.
Okay, go ahead.
So we have worked with the City of St. Joe on the Silver Beach Erosion Control Project. And through that process, we've developed a really nice working relationship. Ultimately, City of St. Joe ended up funding 50% of the erosion control work, which I thought was fantastic. We've had an ongoing discussion about just the shoreline and recognizing that just about everybody and their brother is armoring their lake frontage. And by no means is this the best solution. It's very costly. It requires a variety of permits. And we know that changing lake levels are something that we're going to deal with for the end of time. A conversation has been going on between some of the lakefront communities and the state of Michigan, specifically with representatives from Eagle, or the former DEQ. For decades, the state has allowed hydraulic dredging coming out of rivers to be placed onto public beaches as part of beach nourishment. And that really helps, and that was done just last year. The channel was pumped onto the areas around Silver Beach. Well, the conversation has kind of morphed into, why can't that same approach be done with offshore sediment, offshore sand, and allowing public beaches or even private beaches to be nourished just using a dredge rig sitting offshore and pumping sand back up onto the beaches. This is something that's done all across the country. Unfortunately, in the state of Michigan, Eagle does not allow that. Now, representatives from Eagle have expressed a high degree of interest in studying the issue, and City of St. Joe is taking the bull by the horns and is putting together a grant that would seek funding to study the potential positives and negatives of using offshore dredging to replenish public beaches. I'm asking this group to consider a motion of support to join that grant application. And the reason is we've got Silver Beach, but the bigger issue is we have all of this lakeshore and all of the communities along the lakeshore are being impacted by this. If the grant is successful, there would then be funding provided to Edgewater Resources to do a very intensive study of the effects of offshore dredging to replenish beaches. If that study reaches conclusions that are accepted by Eagle, we could be in a situation several years down the road where instead of having to go out and spend $100,000 to $200,000 to armor beaches, we could be spending a fraction of that on just doing hydraulic dredging, going out, parking a dredge rig offshore, pumping sand from the bottom of the lake back up onto the beach. And in weeks, you're able to replenish the beach for truly a fraction of the cost of what everyone is spending. Now, the long-term benefit to that approach is you're not forced to go out and build steel revetment walls. You're not forced to build rock armored walls. And long-term, it's going to make the beach more accessible to literally all of the public. Personally, I think this makes a ton of sense. And I'm hopeful that the state will embrace this approach. But before you can have that conversation, we've got to go through the study process and demonstrate to Eagle that this is a viable way to do beach replenishment. Now I'm going to show you just a real quick memo that staff has worked on. We've been in conversation with the City of St. Joe, with Edgewater Resources and our Parks Department. So here's a memo from our Parks folks, just talking about what the study would do and talking about the potential benefits to the county, but talking about literally the potential benefits to everyone living along the lakeshore. So what I'm looking for is support from the admin committee to partner up with the City of St. Joe. The grant process is already underway. The city would be the formal applicant. What I'd like to do is offer a resolution of support that strongly supports the application, strongly supports the study, and then I would walk that eventually to the Board of Commissioners with that resolution of support. If the grant were funded, I think our total out of pocket to help with local match would be a not to exceed $25,000. Now we're still the better part of 6 to 9 months away from any financial commitment, but I just want to make sure that this group is aware of what's being considered.
Brian, we're obviously not the only community that has a lake shore. Any other counties, any other cities even thinking of this?
I can tell you that when, back before I made the move from South Haven to here, this is something that we were actively discussing. Yesterday, I went down to Chickaming Township. I met with the supervisor there. I anticipate that he'll be offering a letter of support for the study. I think that Michelle Height, the supervisor from New Buffalo Township, is also very supportive of the study. But I mean, if I were to put this out on the manager's listserv and just ask who would be supportive, I mean, you're going to see arms going up from New Buffalo all the way to Petoskey.
Right.
Because this really is a game changer. You're talking pennies on the dollar, dredging versus armoring and manually doing beach nourishment.
Brian, what are the side effects or the bad? What could happen that's bad about this?
Well, that's really going to be, that's where they get into the weeds as part of the study. They're going to have to demonstrate that they're not providing any detriment to aquatic species, to natural habitats. So that's where the science is really going to get engaged. The team from Edgewater has put together some outside specialists from Michigan Tech University, from the University of Michigan, people who really know this field of study and can lead the discussions and lead the study and ensure that there's rock solid recommendations to the state.
Okay, any other questions from the committee?
Well, I don't have a question, but I'm in support of this idea of doing the study, of doing that for, this is gonna be a long as the lake is up, levels, we're gonna have this problem. So this study right there would help, like you say, Brian said, is probably the shoreline all the way up the state of Michigan and around. So I'm in favor of this study. That's the point.
Okay, thanks, Don. And I agree. It sounds to me like before we could do anything like this, you got to have the study to say that, you know, what the environmental impact is going to be, whether you could even do it. And it would probably pave the way for, you know, a lot of communities that have, you know, lakeshore frontage. The one question I do have for you, Brian, is, and I'm not sure I have all the facts right. The wastewater treatment plant in New Buffalo that was being threatened by the water, would this help in that situation at all? Or is that a case where they had to put up some kind of a barrier?
So barriers aren't going to go away. Anything that's built immediately adjacent to the lakeshore, we're still going to be looking at having to have some type of revetment system in place. What this could mean is, like the last 2 summers, you've essentially had no public beaches because there's just been such high water, and you're losing so much of the sand. You're just losing so much of the public space. What this would mean is, as we've seen with any harbor dredging typically is getting pushed out onto the public beaches, and you're seeing a short-term benefit. This could provide a similar benefit, but I think that it could be spread to a whole lot more public beaches. Right now, the only people that can really see the beach nourishment are the beaches immediately adjacent to pier structures. And that's only timed when the Army Corps has funding and they're able to come in and do the harbor maintenance. This would allow anyone along the lakeshore to go out and to hire a King company to come in and set up the dredge rig and do replenishment on the beach. I can't stress enough that for any community along the lakeshore in the state of Michigan, if this study goes the way I think it is going to go, this could be a huge benefit, because the only tools we have right now are hauling in rock and then hauling in outside sand. That's it. And this would just provide a much quicker and a much more affordable process to reclaim some of the sand that's been swept out.
And I got a comment that Commissioner Scott just sent to me. He's trying to get on the chat, but he cannot. According to the Undersecretary of the Army, for Army Corps, this offshore dredging is a solution to the erosion problem, but Eagle needs to approve it. But the Corps' support is there.
Yep.
Yeah, that helps. That's his comment.
Okay, Brian, now once the study is done and if there are no adverse environmental impact and Eagle approves it, how would that apply to, say, a private citizen, a landowner? Would they also be able to benefit from this?
I think so, but I mean, we're talking years down the road. by the time we go through the study, by the time we get Eagle to accept the studies, and assuming the studies do recommend that offshore dredging be permitted, you still then have to go through the regulatory process of setting up permitting, then through the process of potentially setting up a grant program to help assist with the cost of this. I mean, this is going to be years down the road before I anticipate that this is a viable option for local communities. But what we know is that the lake levels are going to go up and down. And if we work now, we have the potential to be ready the next time we see a major increase in the lake levels. From my perspective, this is an awesome tool that we should be pursuing, because it is just going to be so much more affordable than what we've done. And what we have done, as the lake levels begin to drop, what you're going to see is just a massive amount of armoring that's gone on up and down the lake shore that is going to make it really difficult for people to navigate trying to walk along the lake shore.
Commissioner Scott just added one more comment.
Yeah.
Not wastewater treatment plant. That's New Buffalo's water supply pumping house that's threatened.
Okay, I like to, if we need a motion, I'd like to make the motion that we move forward on, I guess, proposing this or allowing our names to be attached to it.
I think that would work. What I'll do is I'll work with Annette. If you all say, yes, move this forward, I'll work on preparing a resolution of support for the grant application and a commitment to throw into the local match if the grant is approved.
Okay,
Well,
sounds to me like that's agreeable to the committee. And we'll approve it by resolution.
Yes.
So right now, yeah, right
Okay.
now you have our blessings to move forward, correct?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, the remodel?
Hey, Jim,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
gonna have to leave the meeting because I got to start in about 3 minutes. So
No.
I got things to talk about anyway, but I'll let you know I got to get out of here.
Okay.
It's okay.
Thanks, Don. We'll see you at 10:30. Okay, friend of
Okay.
the court remodel? And Mike?
Yeah, so
This one?
Mr. Chair, I've put up a drawing just to remind the group of what's being discussed with friend of the court. So back in the summer, you all took a tour of friend of the court, and this would have been the main entry, the foyer. And at that time, we just noticed that you walk straight in and kind of run into a big wooden wall. And then as you navigate the various corridors through the front of the court, over here in the upper right side, that's the area where we had staff really jammed in, set up with just a series of cubicles. And those cubicles were the ones that, for whatever reason, were falling apart. So that's just a quick reminder on why we're talking about friend of the court. We have gone through the process of putting together the bid spec. We have then gone out, shopped the project. We had multiple bids, and I'm just pulling up this packet for y'all.
Hey, Brian, I have a question for you while you're doing that.
Yeah.
Most of the bids come through finance. Has finance had anything to do with this, with the bidding process?
Yeah, so you guys are acting as the gatekeepers. If you tell me you want to see this progress, then I'll be doing the same presentation to the finance committee in about a half hour.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got just a summary of the bids. So our low bid was Brown and Brown Construction, and they would be handling the general construction. This would be the remodel work. So that's a bid of $52,400. Our big concern through this process was asbestos abatement. We had a feeling that currently wedged in between the wall panels of that wooden wall that would be removed was the potential of asbestos. Staff has worked with Villa Environmental and confirmed that yes, we do in fact have asbestos that will need to be abated. They have reviewed the project and bid $19,900 to perform the abatement work. Then we went through Metro Business Solutions for the office furniture. This is a bid of $53,650. Now that's all of the cubicles, all of the various office furniture that will be needed. But then this also includes the separator wall that has the security materials that admin has talked about. So we've got a total project cost of $125,950. So at this point, the project has definitely grown in total cost. And I'm still very much of the mindset that this is a good investment. As you all have seen, the space limitations on the front of the court right now are very much real. We have people very much stacked on top of one another. Now, my biggest problem with this is, number one, the cost has definitely grown, but number two, my intent had been to book 100% of this to the CARES Act. The CARES Act is going to require that not only do we have purchase orders in place by the end of the calendar year, which we can do, but we also then have to take possession of either the materials or have construction substantially underway. And those two components are what we're struggling with. There's a good chance that I can book some of the total project cost to the CARES Act, but I'm not going to be able to book all of it. And I can lean on Metro Business to try and get that material ordered and received prior to the end of the calendar year. I can lean on Villa Environmental to get their work approved and underway, but I'm not going to be able to have Brown & Brown start their project before the end of the calendar year. So the question to admin is, assuming that I can get, let's say, a quarter to half of this booked to CARES Act, is there still a desire to move forward with the project, knowing that we're just bumping up against the end of the calendar year?
What are your thoughts, committee members? I'm okay with moving forward.
I'm okay with it as well.
I'm good.
Okay, then I think you have consensus from us, Brian, to move forward. Just do the best you can to get as much done before the end of the year. That'll be covered by the CARES Act. Anything after that, we'll have to take care of. We'll cover it.
Okay. And on the CARES Act, one thing I'm going to do, PHS has really taken a leadership role and pointing out some of the shortcomings in the hazard pay program that was part of the CARES Act. I think that it would make sense for the Board of Commissioners to take a similar position as it relates to the spending requirements of the CARES Act. I mean, we're all coming down to the wire on trying to get purchase orders lined up. Chris Weihart's in the room. He's going to be talking with finance in the next few minutes. And I just cannot believe that we're going to be ordering the better part of, I think, like 80 to 85 laptops. 85 laptops that he has. It's going to be the beg, borrow, and steal approach to get these laptops here before the end of the calendar year to ensure that they're 100% CARES Act fundable. My point on this is, I think that there's going to be a ton of value in communicating to both the state and the federal government. CARES Act is great, but giving more time would be extremely helpful because it just allows communities an opportunity to shop for the very best product and to ensure that if you've got construction costs, that you can actually get those contracts lined up and implemented prior to December 30th.
Hey, do you need anything from us, or how do you feel is the best way to communicate that to the state on giving us an extension? past December 31st to spend the CARES Act money? What's the best way to handle that?
So what I'm going to do is bring a resolution to you all, similar to what PHS has done. That will be a resolution that just asks for greater time to be granted to CARES Act expenses. I'll bring that to you in January. We'll move it from admin to the full board. We'll get it adopted by the full board, and then we'll communicate it to Congressman Upton, to the state of Michigan, et cetera.
Okay, and primarily, who is that targeted at? Who set the December 31st deadline? Was it the
It's
federal
tied back
government?
So it's tied back to the legislation. Department of Treasury has been offering FAQs on how to use your CARES Act spending. And so that's, the Department of Treasury is the one providing guidance to counties across the state. But ultimately, it's tied to the federal legislation. And I guess my point on this is we might not get any help on CARES Act 1, but if CARES Act 2 does actually get out of the gates and approved at the federal level, there's still time for them to be aware of the timing issues, and that could easily be corrected.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. And
No problem.
unless I hear differently, we are in support.
That's perfect. So what I'll do is I'm going to then update finance at their 9:30 meeting. And assuming they're comfortable with proceeding, I'll then be working to get contracts lined up with the various subs and then bring it for final approval.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay, do you have anything else for us, Brian?
I know Annette's got a whole list for you, so I'll get out of her way.
You want to move to board appointments then, Annette?
I do. So these are just reappointments to the 911 Advisory Board. The three people who have submitted their applications to be reappointed is Bruce Stover, Jack Fisher Jr., and Ted Post. I have one more citizen that I don't have yet. That's Mr. Shigoda. I've not received any documents from him suggesting that he doesn't want to be reappointed. I just don't have his application physically in my hand yet. So what I would be looking for from you guys is consensus to do suggestion or a recommendation to the full board to reappoint these individuals to the 911 Advisory Committee.
Okay, so do you want us to do that now, or do you want us to do that during the full board?
No, I won't. I'm going to try and get it for the full board today, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But I will. I just need to know you're good with it, and then we'll try to get that scheduled on a board agenda to do the full board. But you guys will talk about it during that portion of the meeting.
Okay, if you have time before the 10:30 meeting, would you send those to me, those names?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I'm in favor of it because I know the three people from 911 because I sit on 911. They're good people. We want to keep them on.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll do that. Then I need a motion to approve your November 25th minutes.
Okay. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
I'll support.
Okay. You have a motion and support. Madam Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
Commissioner Majerick,
Yes.
Commissioner Hugel,
Yes.
Commissioner Kern,
Yes.
and Commissioner Meeks is absent.
Right.
Okay. Now I just gotta check for your public comments and then I think we're good.
Okay. I just have one item that needs to go into the minutes and that.
Sorry.
When you're ready.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Okay, on December the 7th, I signed a distribution form for the Sheriff's Department to receive grant money from the Berrien Community Foundation in the amount of $2,075. And it was to fund the Shop with a Cop 2020 program. Just like to have that in the minutes that I signed that.
Got it.
Okay, public comment,
All right, I'm gonna check one more time.
okay?
Tony Benhart from Sodas Township would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Tony. Anything else?
No, I believe you're good.
Okay, so is our business completed, Brian and then Annette?
Yes, sir.
You mean we don't get to hear from Chris? Is there any-
Chris had the next meeting wrong on his calendar. I thought I was supposed to be here at 9, so.
Better to be early than late.
I'll say Merry Christmas to all of you anyway, so how about that?
Thanks, Chris, and same to you.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, we also have Warren in the room. He's here for finance, I believe.
Yeah, there's apparently a misunderstanding about the finance committee meeting, so.
All right. Okay, if there's nothing else for admin, then we will adjourn the meeting and we'll see everyone at 10:30.
Sounds good.
Thanks.